All right, all good.
What is up, Gabriel?
Hey there, Ian.
We're back.
And hey there, Blank as a Fart fans. Welcome to our latest episode. It is Wednesday. It is March 19th. We're over a year into our run here. Thank you for all of you who have joined us this whole way. Um, we've reached a real milestone here tonight. Ian may not sense it, but those of you who are fans feel it for sure. This is part 8 of The Return, informally known as Gotta Light. And it is, maybe aside from the OG series finale, probably the most talked about, the most dissected, the most discussed episode of the entire run.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
there's a lot to be said about this level of experimental filmmaking in a television series. So we do have, what, a 20-minute stretch with no dialogue whatsoever?
I don't know, but it's not really television anymore. It's a cable channel producing a
Yeah,
streaming show for, so it's not really.
producing an 18-minute film.
This wouldn't actually be. I don't think this would actually be on network television. So, I think.
No, yeah, television is a much more loosely used term these days.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
But yeah, it's a bit of an interlude from many of the other like real grounded stories that are going on in the series. So yeah, not a lot of what you would call plot development going on here. But there's a lot of fun imagery to pick apart and a lot of fun theorizing to do and a lot more questions asked than questions answered in this episode, for sure. Um So unless you got any housekeeping to do, like we said, we don't think we're going with the new email, folks. That was kind of a waste of everybody's time, aside from being a fun inside joke for about a year.
But go
Hit us
ahead and
up on the
use it if you have
socials.
it.
If you have it, yeah. If you know the password, hey, let me know. If you crack it. But yeah, you can always comment on the socials, comment on the YouTube channel, comment while we're live. We love talking to the fans. We love engaging with other people who might have other theories or other memories. So feel free
Memories.
to jump in whenever you like, now or in the future when you stream on your own time.
Indeed.
So yeah, we ready to rock?
Rock and roll.
Let's do it. Part 8 begins with Mr. C and Ray on the road. Mr. C says that there are 3 tracking devices on their car. He opens his phone to a screen that no normal human phone would have. He enters the license plate.
Some of that classic Lynchian technology.
Right, yeah. He enters the license plate number of the truck in front of them and throws the phone out the window, claiming that should solve the problem. Ray thanks Mr. C for getting him out and apologizes for getting himself in and the whole predicament he caused. He asks after Daria, and Mr. C lies, telling Ray that she's waiting for them to get safe and give her a call. When Ray wonders about their destination, Mr. C suggests that he might like to go to, quote, the place they call the farm. He then reminds Ray that he's supposed to have some information for him, which Ray has not forgotten, but has now decided that those numbers that he memorized for Mr. C are probably worth quite a lot of money. After a long stare, Mr. C instructs Ray to take the side road at the next exit. More point of view nighttime highway driving, a very favorite motif of Lynch.
Indeed.
Yeah, Ray is cocky as ever in this scene. He just seems unbothered. I mean, we learn why pretty quick, but he's really always kind of seemed like that with Mr. C, and I don't know that that's ever seemed earned.
I don't know if I really noticed him being overly cocky.
I mean, squeezing him for money already.
Sure, but I didn't really. It just kind of
Although really,
seemed.
he's just
I guess. I
squeezing him
guess.
for
I guess I just
time in
figured that's how his
this.
character was. Like he's always been like this kind of weird character, kind of the Weasley asshole character. So I just kind of felt he
Yeah,
was just
I guess it's just in the face.
maybe.
I got to be honest with you. I don't remember his fate.
Oh,
I
really?
don't know what happens to
Oh,
Ray.
probably something
That's
very
going to be
cool.
just as
Probably the
I've
most
watched the
coolest
series
thing.
twice and I don't remember. I'm guessing it's going to be a little more simple, but yeah, I honestly don't recall
I hope Mr. C
how
gets him
he
in his
gets dealt with.
underwear
So
and then like suffocates him with a pillow and anyway.
yeah, I remember a little bit about what goes on at the farm, but not that.
Makes him squeal like a pig.
Oh, something along those lines, I'm sure.
Deliverance style.
I don't know. Ray's mouth is not purty. Ray eventually pulls over to take a leak, and Mr. C uses this opportunity to check the glove compartment for the friend he was promised. A revolver, which he confirms is loaded. Mr. C exits the car and draws on Ray, demanding the information. But surprise! When Ray turns around, he's also armed. Mr. C pulls his trigger, and nothing happens. Tricked you, fucker, Ray says, and fires twice, striking Mr. C in the abdomen and sending him falling to the ground. Ray approaches it, aims at his head, preparing to fire a final killing shot, when suddenly there's a flashing of light, and Ray looks up to see the ghostly figures of the blackened woodsman suddenly rushing at Mr. C's body. The editing here gets very strange, like everybody seems to be just fading in and out of the shot from their stationary position, uh, both Ray and Mr. C included. There's that again, an oppressive humming of electricity drowning out all ambient noise, except for some odd tones that occasionally sound and serve as a soundtrack to this bizarre scene. The ghostly woodsmen alternate between dancing around, playing in the dirt, and smearing Mr. C's blood all over his torso and face while a horrified Ray looks on. Eventually, Mr. C's stomach splits open, and from it, the woodsmen pull out a fleshy black orb, which bears the grinning face of Bob. Ray has now fallen on his ass and crawls away in terror, his screams muffled and distorted as though through some kind of weird barrier. He is finally able to snap his fear paralysis and makes a mad scramble for the car, flooring the gas as the bizarre ritual continues. There is a very, very slow fade to black and then a brief shot of clouds surrounding a quarter moon before we cut to Ray on the phone while he drives. Leaving a message for Philip, Jeffries, or whoever was standing in, Ray says that he thinks Mr. C is dead, but he's not 100% sure because he got some help. There's an understatement. And he saw something inside of Cooper that might be the key to all of this. Whew. Sorry, that was a long one. Thank you for letting me go on.
Yeah.
You got nothing here,
I
huh?
don't know. Like, I mean,
This
I guess we
elicited no emotion from you? Like,
know.
how did you feel watching this scene? Did you feel uneasy? Did you feel...
Oh, really? Was like this. Honestly, I was just like, oh my god, what's with the bad key and opacity effects? Like, like okay. Anyway, that's what was going on in my head. I don't know. I was like,
strictly a technical view of it?
It was just kind of goofy looking. So there's no real. It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't really elicit anything because it just looks so kind of campy. So, I was anyway. This gets answered in a minute, but I was like, is he actually dead? That's kind of where, but we've seen this guy in the blackface a couple times now.
Well, there's
now there's like a bunch
multiple of them.
No, I know,
Yeah.
but like we saw like one in the prison, in the jail, and then there was another time I'm forgetting where the other one was.
in the morgue.
in the morgue, and then
So
yeah,
still, yeah, still in the jail
now there's
area.
like a group of them. Uh, but
Well, and don't forget there were also some. They weren't covered in soot like the new ones are, but there were some woodsmen, or at least one, in the scene in Fire Walk with Me.
I
The
don't.
gathering of the spirits above the convenience store. This is a formica table.
Hmm. Okay, I guess I'm not
So
remembering
yeah,
that. But
one of the more surrealist
so there's a
scenes,
bunch of
the
them
one with the
there.
jumping man. So yeah, yeah. The implication is that the woodsmen are some kind of agents of the Black Lodge.
Gotcha.
So I guess the question now is, what are they doing in South Dakota around Bill Hastings and around what we are assuming is Major Briggs's body?
And what do they want with Bob?
Yeah, we're still not clear because we remember that like whoever, like Mr. C, Cooper Doppelganger, doesn't want to go back to the Black Lodge. And like Bob is kind of helping fuel whatever mission he's on right now. So this is the question that we don't get answered necessarily. I mean, yeah, Mr. C is alive and well, but is Bob still there as part of him? Like we see him come out, we didn't see him go back in. We didn't see
Them carry
the
him
woodsman
off,
carry him away.
right? I don't know.
So all we saw is what Ray saw. And I think that's, I mean, yeah, again, I feel like a lot of what we see is supposed to be from Ray's point of view or from like a shared perspective. Like we hear things the way Ray is hearing them. We're seeing things the way Ray is seeing them.
Sure.
And I'm kind of, when I watch this, I feel that uneasiness. I feel that like it creates an environment for me that is greater than, the sum of its parts.
It did not do that for me.
I get you. I'm curious to learn what kind of movies do that for you, but maybe we can save that for a post-show wrap conversation. Now we have our one and only scene this week set in the actual town of Twin Peaks, as an MC at the Roadhouse introduces the Nine Inch Nails. We get a full-length performance of the song She's Gone Away from the Not the Actual Events EP. Fun story, this song was written specifically for this episode. The EP was released before it aired, however. The original song that Trent pitched for David Lynch was This Isn't the Place from Add Violence, I believe, which is a much slower, much more somber, kind of quiet, meditative song. And Lynch was disappointed and asked for something far more ugly and harsh. And
Oh my god!
I don't recall if he gave like Trent an idea of what the concept of this, where it was going to fit into the series. I think he might. I don't know if he had that much planned out that far in advance, but I mean, the way these episodes are structured around their shooting schedules, you'd have to think that he had like some kind of map planned out,
maybe,
for the whole thing. But anyway, yeah, a couple of other notes. The lineup you see on stage is a lineup you will never see again or before. Number one, Mara Queen is part of the band. That's Trent's wife, for those of you who aren't in the know. She does appear on the track on the album as a special guest. Also, behind the skins, that is Joey Castillo. Most famous for a lengthy stint with Queens of the Stone Age, but he has never performed with Nine Inch Nails, has never appeared on a Nine Inch Nails release. Was just a last-minute stand-in for Ilan Rubin, the usual guy who was not able to make the shoot.
There you go.
So, yeah, the Nine Inch Nails, an alternate reality lineup. Quite possibly what inspired the alternate reality lineup that appears in the liner notes of the Watchmen Volume 3 vinyl.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, deep cut there. I still need to send you like the JPEGs of that. Yeah, it's like so the alternate lineup in the Watchmen universe is it's him, Peter Murphy from Bauhaus,
Oh wow.
Peter Christopherson from Coil,
Right.
and then shit, who's the fourth?
Who's dead?
I forget.
Anyway.
Yeah, but yeah, it's fun stuff. So yeah, the Nine Inch Nails thing was a mistake on the part of the actor playing the MC, but they all thought it was hilarious, and so it made the final cut. And also the if you notice in the credits, the is in quotes.
That's funny.
Yeah. So as the song reaches its conclusion, we abruptly cut back to Mr. C's body, still laying prone in the dirt, but now alone. As the last of the music abruptly cuts, Mr. C pulls a Michael Myers and sits up suddenly, eyes open. Dun dun dun.
He's alive.
Yep. Better watch out at the farm there, Ray. And so this ends any semblance of logical storytelling for this week. What we cut to now is a black and white shot of the desert. Excuse me, specifically White Sands, New Mexico. A title card gives us the location and a date of July 16th, 1945. If you're a history buff, you know what's about to happen. This is the Trinity test. We see the first ever nuclear bomb ignite, and a harsh orchestral score takes over as time slows to a crawl. And we begin a long, slow zoom into the heart of the mushroom cloud itself. The name of the song we hear is Threnody for the Victims of Hiroshima. I've forgotten to write down the composer's name because it was a difficult one to pronounce, and there's no way I'm going to remember it offhand. But a threnody is a song of mourning. So this is one of those musical pieces that has like all kinds of weird alternate directions, like just play your highest note on vibrato as high as you can for as long as you can. Weird stuff like that. I actually played a piece like that when I was in symphonic band as a kid, where it was like supposed to simulate a city at night.
Sure.
And like there was a section for like just 30 seconds where we would just like randomly finger our instruments to like mimic the sound of falling rain on pavement and buildings and what have you. And another section where we would take the mouthpiece off of our instrument and like do a siren with like, so just weird avant-garde shit like that, which is fitting for the weird avant-garde filmmaking we see here. As far as I'm concerned, hate all you like.
It's not hate. I don't know how far you want to go into this before we break it down.
I mean, there's a lot left. So.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of it that I can.
How much do you want to let me talk,
and then we can decide on where we want to stop.
Yeah, I do. I do have some spots here where I think we can break it up and discuss what we're seeing. This part, okay. So this part, I've got a cue for you here. I'm not sure what this is. We're supposed to be seeing once we're inside, theoretically, like the dance of the atoms, or the this is something similar to what I've seen in science films geared toward that nature. Like this is what a oxygen atom looks like, or this is what a molecule, because molecules are constantly moving, nothing is truly solid, blah 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 blah. So that's the impression I get from the imagery here. What I wrote is, I'm sure Ian's going to tell me it's just shitty camera tricks.
Mm-hmm. No, that's not what I was
going
to say.
Or exposed film, or scratched film.
None of that was what I was going to say.
Okay.
Obviously we have to get a little further into the film for me to kind of divulge some of it, but or the hour-long experience. Well, if you in science class, when they smash atoms, it creates quarks, and so if you've seen the explosion of that, it's like this really wild, jiggly craziness. So you're seeing this in actually action, but also
we're seeing
it also looks like level. Fucking like a million like like insects or moths to a flame, just going crazy, and that
Mm-hmm.
kind of ties into the weird insect thing at the end, I think. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway,
Yeah, it's open to a lot of interpretation. I just threw in a lot of adjectives here that we could probably skip.
I mean,
Frenetic, frantic,
I think
sharp, harsh.
I will say this. I think it is a lot of interpretation and like a thought, but I really what I think it is just it's an over glorified like flashback. Like I
Yeah,
know it's like an interpretation of
it's
something that's going on, but I think it's pretty heavy handed on what's going on here. So
yeah.
okay,
Yeah, I think it makes it clear. It just takes a really, really long time to get to the point. But, I think it uses a lot of fantastic imagery to kind of set up the thing that like we've discussed in the past, there's a lot of stuff that's going on here that's beyond the conceptualization of human understanding. And we just again, we're just getting what we can see and what we can understand and whatever signals our brain can interpret. There's a lot of shit that's being left out. So now color returns to the screen in random bursts and explosions. We get the sensation of traveling kind of through a tunnel, but it kind of in a loop, as it seems to be a lot of the same clouds of flame just through different filters. Eventually, the flames go back to black and white and are dissolved into a shot of an ancient looking convenience store out in the middle of nowhere in some desert, with two antique gas pumps out front and a set of stairs on the right side of the building. The gas station, the convenience store, and the space above has, been used a lot in the discussions of the Black Lodge and the spirits that dwell there. So yeah, again, this is imagery that's not a surprise to anybody who's been following along. But it's a closer look, like at the level that it actually exists at in like whatever plane, whatever realm, whatever you want to call it. The activity. Where did I leave off? Oh, yeah, the activity of the lights within the building and the smoke billowing from the front door all appear to defy the rules of time. Eventually, the woodsmen appear, their motions also choppy and disjointed, making their movements seem furtive and scurrying, also like insects.
if you're a nonlinear editor, if you've ever scrubbed a timeline, that's basically what's happening right here. Where you kind of with the mouse you can scrub the timeline back and forth, and the scenes jumble up, and you hear the sound like cuts back and forth and reverse and forwards in a very kind of. That's basically what this is. This effect. They basically Lynch is like, oh, let's record that. It's basically what's kind of
Yeah.
happening here. If
You
you
wonder
are
how
trying to
many
get
takes.
if you're trying to understand, but I don't know. Not a lot of people are nonlinear editors, so. But that's what I took away for this
I
effect.
get the feeling this is something that he always kind of wanted to do, but never could with the tools given to him prior to the digital age. So, yeah, something I'm sure he was just cackling about in the editing room, just having a grand old time. If watching these backstage documentaries is any indication, he is just loving every second of it. The editing and camera shots get more and more chaotic as we zoom in closer to the window of the convenience store and the silhouettes of the woodsmen, which are now within it, before some strange vortex opens up and we find ourselves in a void. And suddenly, we see a white humanoid form, eyeless and vaguely feminine in shape, floating in dark clouds. Uh, Based on the credits and kind of what we can see, this is the same, quote, experiment that slaughtered poor Sam and Tracy way back in episode 1, or part 1, I should say. It appears to vomit up an extensive stream of some sort of fluid, which, as we zoom in, can see is filled with shapes looking like vaguely speckled eggs. And also among this is the black orb that bears Bob's face. So, yeah, somehow this nuclear explosion breached some dimension that allowed this kind of evil into our world, is kind of what I'm reading from this, more or less. Yeah?
Yeah, so it's basically the antithesis of 2001, where he gives birth to the Star Child. Instead, it gives
Right.
birth
Yes.
to Demon Man, Bob.
Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah, the Kubrick imagery with the colors, and yeah, it's very much like the, what do they call that? The Star Tunnel or whatever
Yeah,
from the end of 2001.
yeah.
Yeah, Lynch definitely wears his influences on his sleeve in this episode. Um,
You also got to
and yeah,
think
I don't
like,
think that's
this is, he was born around this time,
right.
and
Yeah,
then
Lynch was born the year after the Trinity test.
so
So
you have
growing up in
that,
the nuclear age, yeah,
and then you have
it
his like,
instills.
then you have like some of his homages to like certain things he probably liked as a child, like
Right.
2001,
So
and
yeah, yeah, he would have been in his early 20s, and he would have seen that in the theater. I guarantee you.
then later we're gonna see here
Well,
pretty soon.
because it would have been his open option.
We go to
Yeah.
this next thing, which is basically like this extended silent film. So there's like this kind of with the actors, and there's a lot of like kind of homages I think he's making in this.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that's just kind of, that's when I was
And
watching it. That's what I was just kind of thinking, like, this is what
but
I'm
he's
thinking,
also
but I don't.
approaching it.
But
He's using them as a tool for surrealist storytelling,
Sure.
which I think is neat.
Sure.
It's not just, something like a sitcom would do. Would be like, hey, what if we were in the Roaring '20s? Ha ha ha. He makes it seem like it's all woven in a tapestry that's, that cosmic tapestry somehow. Where did we leave off here? Oh, yes, we do. We abruptly cut back to fire and scary string arrangements. A hole of pure white light opens up in the center of the flame, and through it passes a wobbly golden orb, reflecting the flames and its malleable surface. Now we zoom through a galaxy of red stars or blood cells. Or something. I thought blood cells. That's what I felt like was bloodstream, but
Sure.
It eventually leads us back to the Purple Ocean. We fly across it, eventually coming to a tall, narrow peak jutting out from the waves, on top of which sits a large, pale building made of various rounded shapes. Kind of look like the Guggenheim a little bit. Near the top, there is a single narrow window that our point of view zooms directly into. The shot goes back to black and white as within we see a room with a large embroidered couch, upon which sits a woman in a sequin dress, whom the credits refer to as Senorita Dido. She's dressed like a 20s flapper, swaying slowly as she listens to old jazz on a vintage phonograph, which looks a little familiar. On the other side of the room stands a large bell-shaped object with two transistors at the top and two small gauges stacked vertically on the front. After a moment, it begins to emit a low alarm sound, while a light at the top blinks in unison. And from behind the object steps the giant. Dressed pretty fabulously, I gotta say. He looks sharp here. He glances at Dido, glances at the strange machine, and then stares directly at us for a long moment, complete with a close-up. Eventually, he steps over to the machine, and after another long moment, presses a button on the front next to the lower of the two gauges, which turns off the alarm. He returns to the area he emerged from, which leads him to a set of ornate carpeted stairs in a theater entrance, foyer area, whatever. He makes his way up the stairs to an auditorium where stands another bell-shaped object, this one taller and narrower with no devices. He then proceeds to step up to the stage, which bears a movie screen and a device identical to the one in the smaller room. The giant waves his hand and the screen flickers to life, showing him the same footage that we just saw of the Trinity test. The woodsman outside the convenience store, and the big black Bob orb in the cosmic vomit. He turns to face the audience and levitates several feet in the air. while a spotlight shines on Senorita Dito from behind while she makes her way into the auditorium. Excuse me a moment. Again, this is all mostly no. We're getting some music with this, aren't we?
There's music, but it's like, yeah, they don't talk.
Yeah, yeah. No dialogue, and the music is kind of like, again, it's like weirdly edited, weirdly pitched, giving you that eerie sensation that you're not quite in Earth realm again. La, 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 la. He slowly approaches the stage where the screen is frozen on Bob's orb. The giant has tilted onto his back now as Dido climbs to the stage, and a golden mist begins to emerge from the giant's face as the movie screen fades into a moving view of the stars. Dido's expression is hard to read as she watches the giant. Is it exhilaration or is it fear? The golden mist grows larger into a vaguely tree-like shape. Remember the evolution of the arm. Then coalesces into something more like a nebula as background flashes of light begin to grow in intensity. From the center of the mist, a sparkling golden orb floats its way down into Dido's hands. As she brings her gaze closer to it, within, we can see the face of Laura Palmer.
Actually, what we see is the face from the photo of Laura Palmer. Jesus.
Right.
Anyway.
The same shot we've always seen.
It's just wild.
The one that drives everything. Yeah. Dido kisses the orb and sends it floating back skyward, where it is pulled into a large golden horn operated by several golden gears within this otherwise colorless room. On the other end, the small end of the horn points toward the movie screen, which has zoomed in on a cartoonish planet Earth. The orb absorbs itself into the screen, briefly losing its color as it crosses the barrier before growing gold once again as it drifts toward the North American continent, while Dido looks on as the scene fades out. Another long one there. Not much dialogue to break up, and it's one scene that goes on for a very, very long time.
But I think this is like, like I was saying earlier, like this is kind of a little silent film. I feel like that this is another homage, and so like with all the kind of homages that are in this kind of thing, I think it's funny. There's somewhat of a meta narrative here going on, like where like the screen absorbs, I think, what is quote unquote the hero. Not necessarily the hero figure, but like the hero narrative.
Well, you know what I came back to on this viewing, because of something we discussed about the original series, was the notion that the mystery of Laura's death was the goose that laid the golden egg.
Yeah.
And she looks very much like a golden egg drifting down to America.
But then also like the hero, but this then triggers the hero narrative of this story. So like, while she's not necessarily the hero of the story, she is like the catalyst, I think, ultimately.
She is the catalyst, yes.
So it's interesting.
The hero to his calling.
It could all be bullshit too. Like that's what this episode's about. Like,
making up your own bullshit. Yeah.
David Letterman. David Lynch has whatever the script was, he took it and then probably just turned it into like this thing that I don't know.
Yeah.
It would be hard for me to believe that this is scripted this way. This is like just all from Lynch's head, I have to believe.
I mean, we do get to see behind the scenes direction of this scene.
Oh, interesting.
And he's telling them very literally what's going on.
Oh,
he's like, you press this button and it turns off the alarm.
Well, yeah, but like it doesn't explain what the alarm's about. Really?
No.
I mean, obviously it's about Bob. To? I mean, no, but like that's what I mean. It's like that's kind of my frustration with it. It's like I don't think that any of this is actually necessary. I don't think we need to see any of this, really. But it's just kind of an exercise in, I don't know what it is, an exercise. It's just him being him. He's just having a good time. I think that's all this is.
Well,
I don't think there's any real
Frost out of the equation.
Okay, fine, him and Frost.
Because he has his input, yeah.
But I just think ultimately this is probably not that necessary to the story.
Well, Yeah, Frost, when he's discussed this episode in forums and stuff, he does kind of point out that some of it serves as fan service.
Oh, okay.
That, a lot of people kind of clamor for origin stories and they
Mm,
want, like, okay, how does it all this come into being? So this is kind of a way
what is
to
this?
sort of maybe answer some of those
So
questions.
maybe there was some exposition here that explained it more clearly, and then Lynch was like, "Fuck that," and then just did this whole like, "This is what this is gonna mean. It's what this is, but I'm not gonna tell them that because they won't know." And like, so it's just like, okay,
See, yeah,
I
that's
didn't, but I
a
don't
lot
feel
of
like
what
I
you
needed
don't
any of
get.
this. I don't feel like I needed any of this, but
You do see Mark Frost on set in these documentaries. Like, he's there.
okay,
Um, you never really hear him talk. Like, Lynch is always the one who's talking.
sure,
But he's definitely not without his input. And I'm sure, like, Lynch just kind of reduces expository dialogue more than
into a
anything.
blood tunnel. Yeah, makes
But
that's what I'm saying. That's what Lynch is gonna do.
like, Frost is the one who was into all the, like, the Lovecraftian shit. So, like, anything you see, like, we talked about the Mauve Zone and all that shit, and that, like, being the power of imagination. So if you want to look at this as a meta commentary, they're in the Mauve Zone, which is the power of imagination. Lynch is the giant. He's got this unformed kind of notion, this idea germinating in this cloud of manic, you know, just just material that he's come up with.
Sure,
And so if you look at Dito as Frost, plucks this, like, one little golden egg, sees the humanity in it, gives it some love, and sends it into America's brains via a big golden horn, which we
sure,
call television.
sure.
So there's your meta commentary.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, literal, if you want to look at this as, like, tying it to the story.
The planet is ending, and Kal-El has to send Superman to Earth.
Well,
It's basically what's happening here.
or it's the White Lodge.
Sure, whatever.
The Giant and Dito are agents of the White Lodge, and they're sending Laura to counteract whatever the experiment and Bob and the other agents of the Black Lodge are trying to do.
Sure.
That's,
Or not at all.
or all of this is bullshit. We're not actually going to get someone explain that to us,
Exactly.
like, within this.
Exactly. So it takes
It's
us
not-
away from the actual story at the moment, and it's like, I don't know if I really
Or
need
does
this. I don't know, but like I just.
Now this part might.
It's an experiment.
This next part might.
Oh well.
Experiment is a good way to put it.
Anyway.
I mean, aside from the woodsman showing up again, but so yeah, we're now returning to the New Mexico desert and still in black and white. We watch the calendar tick ahead to the night of August 5th, 1956. We eventually close in on one of the speckled eggs that we saw in the substance vomited up by the white figure in the void. We watch as it hatches, and from it emerges a winged insect that also has the rear legs of a frog. It slowly crawls across the sand, leaving a wet trail behind it. Pretty unsettling scene.
It's weird.
It is weird. A cloud passes across the full moon, and we move now to a convenience store. Not the same one we saw earlier. This one's real. A teenage boy and girl round the corner from the far side of the building, dressed as if returning from a dance. The girl stops suddenly in front of the store as she discovers a heads-up penny in the dirt. She must be superstitious. She's excited about her good luck. Back out in the open desert, a woodsman fades into view, descending from the sky and landing on the ground, walking towards the camera. Cut to another of his kind appearing and disappearing. This one doesn't float, he just fades in and out. And now we're in the vehicle of a couple driving along the highway at night. That's familiar. Ahead, they can see the car in the opposite lane has stopped to allow pedestrians to cross. As they get closer, they stop as well, and we can now see that these pedestrians are the woodsmen. The hum and the crackle of electricity grows very loud indeed as one of the woodsmen approaches the car. The man driving, staring hypnotically, opens the door slightly to accommodate the woodsman, who leans down to the window with a cigarette in his hand. In a gravelly, distorted voice, he asks a simple question. Got a light? He repeats the question over and over as more woodsmen surround the car. In the passenger seat, the man's wife begins to scream, her own voice muffled and distorted as time appears to slow around them. Eventually, the man is somehow able to break the spell and speeds away from the crowd of specters, barely dodging one of them as he and his wife clutch each other in horror. So we see the same kind of effect that they had on Ray, where time kind of slows, all the sound is muffled, whatever field of energy surrounding these beings emanating from them is just kind of weirding out everything around them.
Right.
Yeah, more throwback. This time to kind of like the 50s and 60s horror, the black and white stuff. A lot of that is like, driving at night out in the lost wilderness of America. Also, kind of like the notion of nuclear fusion, nuclear bombs, and mutations.
Yeah, I mean,
These
Lynch would be
horrific
about 10 now.
creatures. Yeah.
And if you look at the world at this point, I mean, obviously Lynch takes it a
Well,
certain
let's
direction.
like look at the cinema,
Right, no,
particularly the horror cinema.
but also if you look at
At this
Japan, like you mentioned the Hiroshima piece earlier, but you look at how Japan handled it with like Godzilla and the way they've dealt with that fallout.
Yeah.
To pun it up. So like it is
It quite
it is,
literally creates a monster.
yeah, so like that's basically what kind of Lynch is doing here.
Yeah.
In his artistic way.
Right. One of the, like, I read a ton of the reviews, like the online reviews from like Vox and from Vanity Fair and stuff like that. They talk about how like the highways being the arteries of America, and like you don't really understand how big America is until you've driven these highways at night, and how unsettling that can be to just be surrounded by this darkness for hours at a time.
And Lynch was born
and that
in Montana.
Lynch was very good at so he would have seen a lot of that
vast, nothingness. Also, the other
thing
thing
this is something I can relate to growing up in Colorado.
Exactly.
I can remember plenty of nighttime drives where you couldn't see anything but the dashboard lights for a long time. And it is a very spooky and unsettling feeling, but it's also a little exhilarating and kind of thrilling, and opens you up to a certain sense of discovery. So, but yeah, definitely, it's something he tries to evoke. It's feelings that he looks to evoke with this imagery, and with me as an audience, he absolutely succeeds. Meanwhile, the teenagers are continuing their late night walk along a dirt road. The girl reveals she knows where the boy lives, stalker alert, and inquires about Mary, whom he tells her he is no longer with. That's over now. She seems pleased by this news. They have now arrived at her home, and she graciously thanks him for walking her all the way there. He does live in town, and it appears to be some ways out. He politely asks to give her a kiss, and after a brief hesitation, she allows it. Very, very demure indeed on both their parts. The girl then shyly bids him goodnight and makes her way inside. Did you recognize the boy?
No.
No. So this is a very young Xolo Maridueña. For those of you who are familiar with that name, that's Miguel from Cobra Kai.
Oh, that's cool.
Also, Jamie Reyes, Blue Beetle in the DCU. I haven't seen that yet, but I hear it's one of the better ones, thanks to largely his charismatic performance.
It's fine.
Yeah. Couldn't be worse than Black Adam, right?
True.
or Shazam.
I like the first Shazam.
It was okay. It wasn't the travesty, and it was a fun family film. As an ensemble piece, it worked. It's kind of felt like one of the Sonic movies, you know.
Oh, I like the Sonic movies.
You know, your mileage may vary. Back to the desert, where the chief woodsman appears to have found his destination. It's a radio station out in the middle of nowhere. Well, that's usually where they set up shop to not interfere with the towers, right? This is KPJK to be specific. Be specific.
I had
I
a
didn't
double
do any
take. I was hoping
research
it
on
was
that.
KJBK, but it was not. That's an inside thing. It's all right.
Yeah, it is in reverse.
There you go.
A lot of stuff in reverse. Yeah, I didn't do a deep dive into the significance of that. It could just be like the station he listened to growing up in Montana. As he approaches, as the woodsman approaches, I should say, the song we hear is called My Prayer by the Platters. Fun fact, one of the singers in the Platters is named David Lynch.
Mm.
No relation.
There you go.
This is the song that the station is playing on the air at the moment. And after we get a look at the DJ in his booth and the record spinning on his turntable, we see some of the townspeople who are tuned in. A mechanic doing some late night engine work in his garage, a waitress cleaning up at the end of the shift at Pop's Diner, and the teenage girl sitting on her bed and basking in the glow of her newfound infatuation. The woodsman enters the station through the front door, and the receptionist turns to greet him with a smile. Got a light? He asks her as her smile fades, and she finds herself helplessly moving toward him as if drawn magnetically. Her eyes are wide with horror, but she makes almost no sound as the woodsman grabs her by the top of the head, forcing her to her knees and crushing her skull into a bloody pulp. He then enters the DJ booth, asking the same question and gripping the DJ painfully by the temples. The woodsman yanks the needle off the record and switches on the microphone. Into it, he recites a short poem. This is the water, and this is the well. Drink full and descend. The horse is the white of the eyes and dark within. He repeats these lines over and over, and we see all of the people listening to the broadcast falling unconscious. This includes the teenage girl who reaches for the dial to turn off her radio, but falls asleep before she is able to do so. We then again see the frog locust, or whatever you want to call it. Lynch calls it a frog moth, crawling through the dirt, finally flitting its wings to take to the air and land on the sill of the open window to the girl's bedroom. As it approaches her face, buzzing slightly, the unconscious girl opens her mouth wide, allowing the creature to climb inside.
Mm-hmm.
All the while, the gravelly voice of the woodsman continues to recite the poem over the air. After a final aggressive reading of the last line, the woodsman viciously digs his fingers into the skull of the poor DJ, releasing a tremendous amount of blood onto the floor. He then exits the station and walks out into the desert until the darkness of night swallows him up. As the end credits begin to roll, we cut back to the bedside of the teenage girl.
Wait. You can hear a horse whinny in the darkness.
Yes, you're correct. I left that out.
Or neigh, or whatever it's doing.
Yes, the horse neighs, and then we cut back to the bedside of the teenage girl, a troubled look crossing her sleeping face. The only sound we hear after the horse is that ever-present hum of electricity that we've now come to associate with evil things.
So you know, so as I was like kind of talking about Japan and its movies and Godzilla, you know what movie released in 1956 in America? Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So I think that's an interesting parallel too with this weird creature going into this person's body and
Yeah.
Anyway, I had to like look that up because I was like, that's what I'm getting, like this idea that this creature is going to take over this body, and
Yeah,
like
you
how
do
kind of like maybe the evolution of these creatures changed, but like maybe this is the birth of them, and I don't know.
it's
But
the birth of something.
right. So I was like
Um,
curious about that, and I was like, oh yeah, 1956.
so, who do you think the girl is?
Oh, is she important? Because they didn't give a name away.
No, they don't, and they never do.
Um,
But clues are there, and it is confirmed in supplemental material.
would this be the log lady?
No, not a bad guess. Think again about the horse.
The horse. What was with the horse? I don't remember now. I'm trying.
The horse is the white of the eyes.
Sure.
So where have you seen a white horse before?
Where have I seen a white horse before?
In the original series.
I'm trying to think. Wow, I don't remember. Gabe.
Sarah.
Sarah?
Sarah Palmer.
Oh, interesting.
Laura's mother always saw the white horse when Leland drugged her.
Oh.
When
right.
Bob was about to take over, Laura always had a vision of the white horse. Also, something to note is that Cooper had a vision of the white horse when he was exiting the Black Lodge.
So these insect things aren't necessarily evil?
I would say they are. I would say the white horse is a harbinger of bad things.
Well, yeah, the pale horse, that's like a Bible verse.
It always, yeah, it's a biblical. But the point I'm getting at is that the girl is Sarah.
Okay. Interesting choice.
Yes. And like I said, this is confirmed later on in The Secret History of Twin Peaks. Or no, excuse me, this is confirmed in the final dossier, which I am assuming is like a novel version of all the shit that Frost wanted in the series that Lynch made him cut out. Because this is like shit this is expository stuff that like very acutely fills in certain blanks that you won't necessarily see filled in the return, at least not explicitly.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I still do not own a copy of that, and I still have not dug real deep into the secret history of Twin Peaks. That might be an episode for later on. Once we've seen the whole series and we can tie all the bits and pieces together. We definitely want to save the final dossier for the end because there are spoilers involved. But
yeah, I don't know. It's a thing. It was a thing. Interesting that this is like the most popular thing. It's got to be a fanboy thing. I would feel like most like noobs would be like, no, that's an episode.
Popular. I would just say discussed.
Oh, discussed.
Because there are plenty of Twin Peaks fans of the original series that hate this episode.
Oh, okay.
That aren't fans of the return in general. And then there are people like me who think the return is the best part.
Interesting.
So, yeah, this episode is divisive specifically among Twin Peaks fans.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I don't know. Didn't do a lot. Didn't seem necessary. And I guess I wish that... I don't know. I think just the pacing on this is just like... Can we just get to it? Like, not only that, but like... It'd be cool if like Mr. C was dead and like they moved on to something else. But he's back. And we got to do that some more.
The drop on him was definitely a surprise to a lot of people on that first viewing, I'm sure.
Let's do something like, but it's never crazy like that. It's not like, oh, someone's dead and we have to move on. It's like crazy like this weird experience. And then, I don't know. I guess I'm just waiting for more things to actually happen versus just the plotting of artistic freedom sometimes. Like, it's just so pretentious. Like, well, can we get a little bit of, like, more of something else versus just you just painting constantly? Like, I don't know. That's my issue with it a little bit. Like, it's just the pacing is just so languid to me.
It is. And I personally don't mind languid pacing in certain circumstances. I feel like it allows the viewer to absorb a lot more of the mood, a lot more of the setting. I feel it allows for better immersion,
I don't disagree with
which,
that, but I have to be invested in the piece already, and I don't really feel like I have an investment in it that much. So it's very difficult for me to sit through something that's like, well, what? Okay, I get what he's trying.
right.
I get what he's
So,
trying to do, but
okay.
it's like, do I need it for an hour? Like, come on.
So yeah, so now's a good time to talk about like what are the films that you watch that like that leave you with that dread where you just kind of like completely lose yourself in it, where you feel the emotion, where you feel like the heat from the sand in the desert, like when you feel like you're there. Like
Oh,
what was the last movie or
movie?
film or whatever?
Sonic
Like
3. No, just kidding. That's just a callback. I kid. I kid.
waka waka waka.
Waka waka. I don't feel anything, Gabe. I don't feel anything
You're just
anymore. I'm
fucking
so
numb.
just so I'm done and I'm jaded. I don't
It's
care.
all mechanics to you at this point, huh?
No. I mean, something like, well, I guess you know what we already mentioned. Like, I feel like 2001 does a really good job of that. I love that movie. I've seen that movie a million times,
Mhm.
and that gives me the sense of dread, and it is doing this also, but it's in a complete package, and it's, you know, it spans, like, its narrative isn't super clear. It jumps times. It's not super clear what's going on. So like, and I think it kind of is like a great definition of what life is. It has no real. It's not really defined. It's kind of this evolution of beings, but it doesn't really explain to you what's going on, and that's kind of how life is. So like, that was always made its mark on me, and like,
Mhm.
you know, the computer trying to kill you. Basically, that's where every other science fiction thing comes from. But that was like, you know, it's like a very thought provoking version of that. I don't know. There's a lot of that. But there's other movies. I'm trying to think. Being put on the spot, I'd have to go back and think. There's a lot of movies that
Yeah.
give me a sense of dread. I don't know.
Well, not just dread, but
Just
just like
feelings in general, emotions.
that are that are
Like
emotionally evocative.
Lawrence of Arabia. And I'm naming a whole bunch of old movies. I mean, you know, some
How do you feel
popcorn
about
movies.
Villeneuve? Villeneuve. How do you pronounce that?
Yeah, he's cool.
Villeneuve. I mean,
Sicario's
yeah. If you
good.
want to talk about languid
Sicario's
pacing,
good.
though, like
Or
what about Blade
Dune.
Runner 2049?
Oh, that movie's great. I don't think that's very languid. But
For
I'm already
Hollywood, by Hollywood
invested.
standards, it absolutely is.
Oh yeah, but you could. I mean,
I mean, not by what we're seeing here. Lynch definitely takes it to the
I
extreme.
don't find. I
But
don't.
for a blockbuster, there are some long shots,
Sure,
and
but I
again,
mean,
like it's
that's. I think that's
but
different a little bit, but sure. But I'm already invested in Blade
I'd be
Runner, so
interested,
the
like
original Blade Runner, I'm a huge fan of. So like, I'm
right.
already
So it's
invested
easier
in
for you
2049.
to submerge
Right.
yourself in that pool, so to speak.
Yeah.
The water is the right temperature for you.
That's yeah. I'm already. But that movie, I actually feel more emotion for the original Blade Runner. The second Blade Runner, while I'm invested in the camera and the artistry of it, it
Mhm.
it hits not quite as hard as the original Blade Runner, because there's like that question of what life is. Can a computer
Yeah.
have? There's like something more, and then it is. The setting is more uneasy because the effects, while not as good as 2049, they are still seem very real, and the city seems very dirty and gritty. There's a dirtiness to the movie that is just like kind of scummy, and so like
Mhm.
that I can feel. While I love 2049, but yeah, the originals. You know, there's all kinds of movies. Like I love Top Gun. I don't know, like that makes me feel shit too. Like that's like the visceral thing that I love. I love.
That
don't
just
know,
gives you a boner.
That's all kinds of things. There's all kinds of stuff I love, but
That gives you the adrenaline boner.
adrenaline or just kind of camaraderie or bromance, or it's just kind of, or it's nostalgia now at this point. There's that kind of stuff, kind of like I would have imagined the original Twin Peaks does for you, has this nostalgia hit. So it's like that kind of stuff. So, you know, I mean, I love watching, you know, fucking Avengers Endgame, that whole end, you know, when Cap and Avengers Assemble, that still moves me, and I still get my eyes still water when that happens. Like that is,
dude,
I know it's a blockbuster, crazy. I know it's a crazy movie, like it's Hollywood blockbuster, blah blah blah. But it still affects me on a very
way they put it together,
right? It still affects me on an emotional level, still, that I can't believe that, and I can't believe they hit it. Also, like in my head, it's like childhood me would never comprehend that this is something that's happening. Like I would never have been able to experience. Like I would have thought like it'd be any Avengers movie would be that crappy Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie. Like, there's no way we would ever get something to that level that feels so real. So, like, when I watch it, I can still watch it as a kid.
That actually
every
feels
time,
like
and it still feels like it's 100% real thing that is happening, and I can't believe it. So, yeah, you know, it just depends. Like, it just depends on what I'm invested in. And, you know, I've tried really hard to get invested in Twin Peaks. It just hasn't really worked on me. And so I wish it was just more of a condensed. I guess I just wish it was more kind of condensed, and I could run through it a bit quicker. Like it wasn't so much. Like how can we get? But it's fine. It is what it is.
I mean, this is a self-indulgent project for sure. I mean, this is a guy who knows that this is probably his last chance to do something like this.
And hey, he's having fun, and I would never want to take that away from a filmmaker or a director. It's like I wish I could have the money to just fuck around with my friends, you know.
And the cast and crew are having fun too.
Exactly.
Like that is the thing. Nobody on that set is having a bad time.
There's nothing more fun than doing that. Like if you can create, then there's nothing more fun than doing that. So like I don't fault him for it. I'm having a hard time penetrating it in an enjoyment level. I can see his interests and his loves and what he's trying to say. You know, I don't want to deal with this that way, or you know, whatever. But
it's a particular style of art that doesn't resonate with you the same way it resonates with me, which is totally understandable. That's what art is.
That's the journey.
You know, art is going to strike a different chord with certain people. So yeah, but I do like looking at the fun. Like the analysis of all the influences that we see, and like, you know, but also breaking down the theories and just kind of like getting your guesses as to where the story is going when I already know. That's always fun for me to kind of
I don't know if you really get anything about where it's going from this so much. Like you kind of get the feeling
not really.
You get like where it started and where it's been, but you don't really get where it's going.
A lot of people refer to this as the interlude episode, and you know that's not far from the mark because we're kind of roughly at the halfway point. That's technically next week. But yeah, this just kind of feels like, okay, this is a good spot for a breather. You know, let's all go to the lobby.
Right. I also found like the Nine Inch Nails performance kind of silly. Just like I don't know why. It just seemed kind of silly. Like,
I enjoyed it.
It seemed like a little less authentic than all the rest.
Silly.
All the rest of the performances
during the shots of the audience, yes.
Well, yeah, but even the band seemed like the band was like pretty chill, and then Trent's really laying into it, and it's just kind of funny. Like having seen them live, they're a little bit more animated than that. And then
I just think they had too small of a stage to
maybe,
work with,
and then
honestly.
You don't usually see Atticus on the bass, which I thought was funny.
Usually that's Alessandro.
Yeah, so you don't usually see that.
If anybody plays bass, Alessandro does.
I thought that was funny. I don't know. I'd be curious to know if Trent actually sat down and watched all of this.
Oh, come on. You know he's a fan.
You can say you're a fan. It's Hollywood, man. It doesn't mean you have to watch it all.
He's known Lynch for 30 years, I'm pretty sure. I bet you part of the reason he agreed to work on Lost Highway was because he enjoyed Twin Peaks.
Maybe.
Call it a hunch, but
maybe. I would say it's like probably more of his films and less
that would have been
Peaks.
Out like right around the time he was like living in the Tate house and recording Broken and shit there. So I get the feeling like international murder mystery would have been right up his alley.
Too much Quake, drugs.
No, Quake wasn't until 94.
Sorry, Doom. Too much Doom and drugs.
Yeah, that was after Downward Spiral. after he had spiraled, literally followed that spiral downward. Boy, yeah, it's interesting to watch that documentary now. The Closure documentary, like all the footage of the downward spiral tour where they're like backstage shooting tequila and getting fucked up and like throwing furniture at the exit sign, trying to knock it down, just like
Mm-hmm.
rock and roll debauchery, man. A lot of fun guest stars in that.
Oh yeah.
Tim Rose, King
I
Buzzo.
think I still have it on VHS.
I do, yeah. I never got the DVD version, but I still have the VHS. I still have a VHS player too.
Hmm.
One of these days I'm going to pop it in there.
I think you can watch the whole thing on YouTube.
Really? Even the videos part? Oh, that's right. He leaked it, didn't he? If not YouTube, then Vimeo.
And it's not the whole. It's not the whole broken video anyway. So.
No. You've heard the story behind that, right?
About behind what?
The broken video.
Oh, about how it was leaked. Yeah.
The bootleg, yeah.
I mean, I have an original copy of the bootleg, so
The one with
all the interstitial
Help Me
stuff.
I'm in Hell black. Yeah, but it's Help Me I'm in Hell is blacked out.
Right, but like it
no
has all the,
video
but it
for
has
that.
all the snuff film in between all the
Right,
videos.
all the other stuff. But that one segment is blacked out. And that's how he identified who leaked it. Because he gave different versions to different people where different sections were blacked out.
I don't think any of my sections are blacked out.
If you're the one I used to own, which was stolen from me, the whole segment of Help Me I Am in Hell, which is the guy eating the steak with all the flies,
Mm-hmm.
that didn't appear on the video. It was just like you could hear the song playing, but the screen was black the whole time. And so, yeah, Trent gave an interview where he's like, yeah, this is how I identified who leaked it. And then he adds in parentheses, thanks, Gibby. Referring to Gibby Haynes of the Butthole Surfers. So that's who you can thank for witnessing the broken bootleg.
I don't know, I have to go back. I don't remember there being any black sequences in mine. I'll have to go back. But thankfully I burned it to DVD, so I don't have to watch it on VHS.
There you go. No worries about dusty head cleaning or whatever the fuck. Do they even sell shit like that? They've got to. I mean, retro tech is such a big industry anymore. They've got to sell VHS head cleaners.
Probably on Amazon.
Somewhere.
Probably on Amazon.
Well, as I suspected, we've got ourselves some extra time to chat today, so it's good that I got all caught up on those behind-the-scenes documentaries known as Behind the Curtain. I left my notes over on the couch.
Of course.
If you'll excuse me for a moment, I'll go grab them. All right, so we talked a little bit about the footage of parts 1 and 2, working with Matthew Lillard and what have you. I watched part 3, but didn't take any notes on it, and I didn't go back and watch it again. So I just kind of made notes about what I remembered.
Mm-hmm.
The fun part about this one was the shoot with Dougie and Jade in the show home. So one of the things that I noted was that they made the fake vomit in that kitchen of the show home that they were shooting on. And so, like, you can see them working, and like in between shots, they take it to David and show it to him, and they're like, here's we're almost done. This is what it looks like now. And the other thing you learn from this documentary is that David Lynch's favorite word is beautiful. Beautiful. It looks beautiful, buddy. Looks great. But yeah, it's just hysterical to like see him so excited about fake vomit that somebody is making in a pan. And then he does a rap announcement for the vomit. They're done with that shot.
Of course.
The vomit is a rap. And then part three, we also see bits of the shoot with Cooper and the eyeless woman, Naido, which is what Lynch calls her on set, doing their thing on top of that building out in space. So we see like the big green screen set, and we see them drop Cooper like from a real good height, like on the harness and everything, probably like 20, 30 feet, I want to say, for the part where he like lands on the porch there.
Right.
And then yeah, the part where Naito gets yanked off and goes flying off into space. We see the filming of that as well, some of the stunt work. They also have like a big the floor that's separated in the Black Lodge, like the scene where Cooper's trying to escape and he falls through the floor into the liquid. They show the mechanical. That's all part of that same set and was all shot on that same day. So
Okay.
it's really it's yeah. There's not a lot of like fun trivia that you glean from all of this. You know, nothing like revolutionary. Nothing that's going to like clue you in. I mean, there's some breadcrumbs here and there, but most of it is just like watching him at work, watching the crew at work, like watching the process, and even that in itself is fascinating. Um, so now we move on to part four. This is where I started keeping track of the shooting dates because they show you those whenever they move to the scene that they're working on.
Right.
So the first scene in part four, it was actually the last day of principal photography. This was casino interiors. So this is the Mr. Jackpot scene. The crotchety old woman, the Dougie getting ready to leave and then catching up with him, Bill Shaker and his hot dog. You know, that's all
Right.
filmed on the last day.
Cool. All right.
Uh, so the very, very last shot they filmed of the entire series was the close up of the ceiling security camera.
Of course.
It was 10 seconds of the eye in the sky, was what Lynch's words were, and then we're done. 10 seconds of the eye in the sky, and that's a wrap. So so that was the very, very last shooting. I don't think they've come across what the first scene was, but so far, the oldest one we get to is early October of 2015, and that's the scene where Jerry Horn is lost in the forest.
Oh boy.
So there actually probably could be some scenes from parts one and two that were filmed before that. Like I said, I didn't collect the dates on those, but it would seem that like most of the stuff with the original cast was filmed first.
Oh, okay. That would make sense too with some of their
Uh,
health issues and stuff.
right. Uh, yeah, we'll get into more of that later. So part five, yeah, we see the hitmen make their phone call. We see the scene after breakfast where they're all getting into the car. The exterior of Dougie going to work. You know, like I said, it's all the stuff that we know from that episode. The only things I noticed from part five are one of the lines from the Mitchum brothers. Uh, Instead of 30 jackpots that he hit in a row, the number they give in that particular take is 15.
Oh, they doubled it.
So yeah, I'm not sure where that comes in, but the dollar amount is the same. And the day of filming that scene, January 20th, 2016, was David's birthday. Hooray, David Lynch! They brought him a cake. He was very happy, very excited. On January 15th, they filmed the car explosion. Kind of fun to watch that at work and all the moving parts involved with that. That was also the final day of filming for that particular kid. Way back in November was when they filmed Mr. C's phone call from the prison. Let's see, part 6. Lynch directing Dougie and his interaction with the security guard to be more childlike. The scene where Dougie and Sonny Jim have their clap war with the clapper. David Lynch is on set practicing with the actual clapper itself, and he has to do it 2 times to get it to work. And he's like, "Wait, I have to do it twice?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, it works. You have to do it twice." And he's like, "No, no, no. We have to set it for one. 2 claps is too complicated for Dougie."
Oh boy.
So,
Mm.
yeah, so he was very specific about that. We do get to see a blatant close up of the Miss Vicky's chips in the kitchen of Dougie and Janie E's house. That was definitely the brand they were using. This was a fun one. Filming the scene where Albert meets Diane in the bar. That was fun to watch. We get to see the rain machine in action.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
just a big old sprinkler, but
Mm-hmm.
like a big old sprinkler on a crane over a street that can cover an entire city block.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd never seen one of those
Mm.
in action before, so that was a fun little thing.
Cool.
Um, Looking over the set of the bar, Lynch is commenting on the beautiful woodwork and how happy he is that they got all the TVs out of there. And yeah, just watching him block like the lengthy camera shot of Albert walking all the way through the bar to that one end. Yeah, just again, it's just nothing in particular that stands out very often. Just stuff like the rain machine, but some of the stuff we do get to see is the actual take or is an actual running take, if not the one used in the episode. So we don't just see rehearsals. We see some of that, but we see it all spliced together and just again, it's like it's the process.
Right.
Little shot of Red's magic trick, none of how that actually worked, just scenes of him leading the actors, telling them like what's going on. A lot of time spent on the scene where Ike the Spike kills Lorraine. The actress actually wore blood packs that were punctured during the scene to add to the effect. Part 7, yeah, like I said, was Jerry lost in the forest. The shot in Diane's apartment. So during the shoot and during his rap announcement, Lynch refers to the young suitor as Diane's dashing boyfriend, Jesse.
Okay.
So, not a John, not a gigolo. She just likes the younger dudes.
That would make Diane Jesse's girl.
Da-na-na-na. Good old Ron Springfield.
Yeah, baby.
Talk about a callback.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. We also get to see them shoot the scene on the plane. Mostly rehearsals out of that. See them just kind of getting used to the tight quarters and seeing where the camera placement is. Kind of fun. We get the scene with Ike attacking Dougie out front. A lot of time spent on the gun choice. They give him like 4 or 5 guns to choose from, but he's like, no, no, no. We want the snub nose revolver. That's the one we wanted all along.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, there was a stunt double used for part of that for Cooper. It's fun to watch Naomi Watts. She's always kind of shy when Lynch is telling her to do stuff. Like there's the one scene where she has to slap Dougie when he gets home, and Lynch wants her to practice on him. She's like, "No, I'm not going to slap you." It's like, it's okay, you don't have to do it hard. Just do it hard enough to make a sound. No, I'm not going to slap you, David. And she really needs convincing to like get permission to get physical. And the same is kind of true here too in this scene where Ike goes after Dougie, because like she's supposed to like,
right,
be very physical and wail on him, and she's like, after every take, she checks on the actor that plays Ike. She's like, "Is that okay? Was I too rough on you?" He's like, "No, no, no, you're good." So she's She's a lot of fun to watch work. Like you can tell she's just got to be super fun to work with. Kyle McLaughlin too. Kyle always has constantly positive attitude. Like every time you see he and Lynch greeting each other, they're just like all smiles. Hey, boss. Hey, Kale. Are you ready for another great day? Kale is his nickname for him.
Mm.
Uh, what else does he call him? Kalester, Kale Reno. He gives him a couple of times. It's just, yeah, it really humanizes everything that's going on. It's just, oh, it's great. I love it. They're all great with the kids. Lynch is really good with the kids. Kyle is too. Super good with Sonny Jim.
I hate kids. Ugh, that'd be the
Yeah, I
worst.
know. To their credit, the kids are very well behaved. They don't seem to be a problem. Good working kids, know their job, hit their marks. Oh, that was one fun thing I wanted to point out is like during the rehearsals, you see the gaffers following the actors around with the tape and taping down the marks
Mhm.
during the rehearsal, and then like different color tape for every character. So yeah, that was a neat little how the sausage is made moment too.
Mhm.
There's a prison escape where they spend a lot of time talking about what flashlight for the guard to use. Um, and then on to this week's episode, the part 8. We get a lot of time spent on the scene where Ray shoots Mr. C. Uh, there is, and something I noticed watching the episode, when Ray shoots Mr. C, there's a weird edit during the gunshots where it looks like it's kind of like choppy right between shot 1 and shot 2.
Mhm.
And that's because they only recorded one gunshot.
Oh, of course.
The second is just a loop added in post. So the flickering electricity that they use for the effect, it's live on set, and it makes that sound that he uses frequently, like the really loud, like Jacob's ladder crackling sound. Like I'm not sure what the actual device is that creates the effect, like the lightning machine or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But like you can hear it making that noise and just like every time it goes off.
Fun.
Almost to the point where I thought like they were recording it live with the shot and they were using that audio. Hell, maybe they did.
Interesting.
But it was, yeah, it was kind of like, oh God, I can understand why he wanted, like, this is probably something he heard on a set very, very young, and he's just like, I have to incorporate this somehow. Um, yeah, footage of the giant and Dido in the theater. Fun fact, which I have no reference to, but I know you do. The theater they used for this shot was the same theater they used for the Club Silencio in Mulholland Drive.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
If I remember right, it has since been demolished or remodeled into something far less culturally interesting. A lot of the
I mean, it could be a
scenes
strip
in
club, and that could be just as culturally interesting, Gabe.
no, it was something like a thrift store or secondhand clothing or something fucking lame.
But just as important to the community.
Fun note, that scene was filmed on February 29th, 2016. They spent some time picking out necklaces for Dido. Within the theater, there's a scene of him working with whom I assume is the cinematographer. He gives him like these little telescope things to look at, which I think are like lens sizes that he's testing out.
Mhm.
But he just hands them to him in like they look like telescopes that you would mount. And he's like checking out like which one he wants to use. And he's always got these two, like they look like monocles that are dangling from a necklace on his chest that I assume are like the same thing, but that he just uses for different, like more common lens perspectives.
I don't know about the monocle thing, but I've seen directors use the lenses, the scoped lenses
But
quite a
not
few
like
times.
little handheld ones
Yeah,
that
it's
they
just like
keep around their neck or
it's
something.
basically just the viewfinder connected directly to the lens, so you can see what the shot's going to
Right,
look
right,
like.
right.
I've seen
But
that
not like
used by a lot,
little.
but I don't know what the other. I'd have to see what.
Yeah,
I'd have to see
I'll
it.
see if I can find a still shot to show you. But he says something. I don't know if this would be relevant to you, but the cinematographer goes, well, he's like, we can use one that wide, or I have one that's like really wide, like a 14. And Lynch says, yeah, I think we need one really wide, like a 14. And I don't know what that means,
Yeah,
but
14 millimeter probably.
okay. That's kind of what I assumed, but I don't know what the difference between like what's a standard size lens.
There's no standard size. I mean, it just depends on the. I mean, like 35 millimeter on your standard 35 millimeter.
Right.
It's like your
That's
that's
your
kind of your
typical
standard.
aspect
But
ratio.
there's like, well, you can have a 35 millimeter, but it can have a different ratio. That's different.
Okay.
Ratios can be
All right.
different. You can still have, but yeah, there's like 24s and 14 is really wide.
Yeah.
You can have longer lenses, so then it would be less wide but more depth. Anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see. Pop's waitress. He just seen shooting with her. Very brief, but he refers to what she's hearing from the radio when the woodsman takes over. He calls it mechanical talk.
Mm.
He tells her, and now you're going to hear you hear the record scratch, and then it's silent, and you look up and you're curious, and you're like, what's that? That's weird. That's quiet now. And then you just kind of slowly go back to work. And then you hear some mechanical talk coming. And then you hear the mechanical talk and you look, and then it starts to make you very sleepy. And just so, yeah, he just gives very literal direction as to what he wants them to do. Not necessarily a lot of insight as to like motivation, so to speak. I don't think he works with method actors a lot because they would
Sure.
probably drive him nuts questioning his direction. Um, but yeah, he's very direct about what he wants from you and what he's asking you to do. And I get the feeling that he doesn't have to do a lot of takes. Like you see more than one take with certain people. Um, just where he's like, okay, no, I want you to take your time a little bit more, drag it out a little more here, or, be a little harsher on this word here. But yeah, you get the feeling it's not more than like 3 or 4 takes before he tells them, beautiful, beautiful, it's great. We did a great job. We got it.
Sure. I get it.
So yeah. And then the last bit we get, oh no, we do get to see the chief woodsman uh, killing the receptionist and the DJ. And yeah, Lynch is again encouraging him to be more aggressive and more mean in his movements, but like emphasizing, yeah, this is different than before when you were just kind of like drifting. Now you have purpose. Now you're like, so yeah, he's definitely. Um, what was the other thing I was going to say about that particular scene? Oh, the actor who plays the woodsman there. Incidentally, his name is Robert Broski. Incidentally, great last name. And his main job is he is a professional Abraham Lincoln impersonator.
Of course. Sure.
Which, yeah, if you
That's
see
fun.
a picture of him without the makeup, the beard is part of him. But it was eerie to me, like how much of the woodsman voice was just him.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and not all of it. I mean, there was definitely some, enhancement in post, but like listening to him in the rehearsals and in the takes, it's just like, that's creepy. So
Cool.
yeah, he understood the assignment. We do also see the girl in the room. Yeah, Lynch working with the teenage girl in her bedroom. This is the last bit we get, where he is talking about the frog moth. and explaining, yep, and now you're asleep and you have to open your mouth wide, 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 even wider, because you got to let the whole frog mouth in. And then he brings a model that he made himself, like a stand-in model for the CGI later. And like you can see where the shape of it like forms the rest of it later. Like
Right.
it fills in like, but like what the model he uses is pretty rudimentary and like kind of looks like something, your 10-year-old would make in art class or
Sure.
something.
Sure.
But it also like you see him actually working on it and like painting it. And so yeah, he has a lot of he does a lot of personal touches with the makeup. Like we talked about, he did it with Daria. He also did it with Naido on the parts of her eyes that are all covered up. He did the final touches on that. He didn't work with the vomit at all. He left that to the
Oh,
professionals.
of course.
He was too busy directing Jade. It seemed weird to me how many people he met on set for the first time. Like when he went to shoot with Jade, that was the first time they were seeing each other in person. So I'm not sure who was responsible for her casting, or if he picked her out from a headshot or from just like,
Right.
because I guess that's really pretty frequently the case. Is like directors aren't always in on casting calls for like really really minor roles like that, right?
Right. Right. He just picks
So
it
yeah,
and then be
seeing
like, "Yeah, that's good," or he watches the
but
tape and be like, "Okay, yeah."
but he greets all of them with the same energy that he greets the people he's worked with for years. He's just like, great to meet you. I'm really looking forward to today, and hope you're as excited as I am. And it's just, yeah, I have a whole new respect for him as a person watching him work. Just because you get the feeling as particular as the art comes out. And maybe the process is different in the editing room. Maybe he's a little bit more of a hard ass in post because he has a much more specific vision at that point. But working with the big groups and with the big people, just seeing him be a very positive force as the leader, it's fun to watch. And I'm glad that I started to do this deep dive, and glad I'm all caught up, so I only have to spend a limited amount of time on it per week now.
Cool.
But yeah, it's if those of you at home who are like me, who like have the DVD set and just like never dug into that supplemental material, like it's worth it in this one. And it's kind of inspiring me to go back and like maybe look at like the Lord of the Rings ones on the
Oh,
extended editions
Jesus
that I've never even put in.
Good luck with that. That is
But
so. I mean, I have seen all of that, but that is a lot of content.
have you watched it all?
Yeah, yeah. No, I
Yeah.
was. So there used to be a time when younger filmmaker Ian was just so into all that stuff.
Yeah,
Now I'm
big
just
Peter
so
Jackson
jaded and
guy.
don't care anymore. Just
Right.
like I know.
When you were looking to learn new tricks,
Uh, I don't know I don't know about that. I don't know about Lord of the Rings. I was just really enraptured. I mean, I guess there is a level of that because they do a lot of forced perspective, and how they do the forced perspective is pretty crazy. And
Right. And well,
um,
something I noticed from the little bit that I did watch is how many of the landscapes and the establishing exterior shots are digitally enhanced.
but they're all real. But
Like,
then they enhance them. Yes, yes.
right, like the scenes of the Misty Mountains in particular was something I was like, I never would have noticed that like they doubled the height of them
Hmm.
because
A lot of that stuff,
whatever they
like
did,
the
yeah.
elves, like the tree elves, like they built the base and the kind of the main, like the second story, but then like how they
Mhm.
keep going. Yeah, that's all digitally added to it, but you
Right.
would never know it because it seems so real initially that, and it's really just the evolution of a matte painting. If you look at Star Wars, where they built the sets, but then they have matte paintings behind it, so it's like,
Right.
it's just the evolution of that. But yeah,
Right.
no, it's all very, yeah. So yeah, but that's a lot of content. Like it's staggering that content. So good luck if you do that.
Yeah. I
But
don't know
I
if
hated
that's
my life back
necessarily
then
like a
because my
springtime,
first marriage
summertime
was
gig.
weird. And anyway,
You were looking for a distraction.
looking
Yeah.
for an escape.
Same thing, really, isn't it?
Sure. Well, I don't want to escape anymore. I'm trying to be more engaged. Anyway.
Mm. Which is a hard thing to do in this day and age and stay positive, boy, let me tell you.
You don't have to stay positive. You just have to find a way to channel that rage.
I don't know. I don't know. The guitar has been helping. I'll definitely tell you that.
There you go. All right. Well,
So yeah, that's pretty much all I had. I mean, I've covered all the behind the scenes stuff. I don't think we had any real trivia that I didn't address during the course of the recap or the notes. Boy, that Platters song, I would recommend folks go and listen to that one. As far as 50s doo-wop goes, it's pretty spot on, but it's also got like a real haunted, eerie quality to it in some of those chord changes. You can see why.
I had just Googled it. So I'll pull it up
Yeah,
again. It was actually released also in 1956. So like along
it
with
was. Yeah, so it logically fits in with the timeline going there. It makes you wonder what happened in David Lynch's life on that date that stuck with him so memorably. Like, did he hear this song and have his first boner at that age, or that's such a crude thing to think about. I don't know why I went there.
hmm. I guess there was a. It was originally written in 1926, but the lyrics were added later in 1939.
Hmm.
Anyway, and then Glenn Miller recorded the song once, and then the Platters recorded it later, the doo-wop version in 1956. Interesting.
But yeah, I would. Yeah, it's worth a listen. And spoiler alert, it's not the last time we're going to hear it in the series either.
It's been used in a lot of things too.
Has it?
Curious Case of
Uh,
Benjamin Button, Mischief,
Actually,
October Sky, Malcolm
there is
X.
one last thing I want to do before we go. I want to go over the composer for the piece we discussed earlier, the Threnody.
It's also a B-side. So on the album, it's the B-side on the album called Heaven on Earth.
Huh. Interesting that. Nothing initial. Well, like there was no Google autofill for Threnody, in case you're wondering. Okay, so the composer of this is Krzysztof Penderecki, who is a Polish composer and who was a Polish composer and conductor. Uh, Died early in the pandemic, late March of 2020, aged 86. I had read that some of his other pieces had been used in other work, uh, honors and awards, film and television scores. Oh, some of Penderecki's music has been adapted for film soundtracks. The Exorcist features his string quartet, fragments from the cello concerto.
The original Exorcist with the tubular bells in opening.
The original Exorcist, yes. The Shining features Kubrick's The Shining, features 6 pieces of Penderecki's music. David Lynch used him in Wild at Heart, Inland Empire, and he was also in the film Fearless or his music was also used in the film Fearless by Peter Weir. Oh, that's the Jeff Bridges movie. That same song, Threnody, was used during one of the final sequences in Children of Men.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, Scorsese's Shutter Island featured one of his symphonies. I'm going to have to start looking at some of his stuff. That sounds interesting. So yeah, some good music to check into out of this episode. Christoph Penderecki and The Platters, My Prayer.
Nine
That's
Inch
what we'll
Nails.
leave you with tonight. Oh, yes. And Nine Inch Nails, She's Gone Away. How could I leave that one out?
Everyone knows
Oh,
Nine Inch
my
Nails. Come
God.
on.
And everyone should know at this point that Nine Inch Nails is my favorite band ever of all time, always.
Also mine.
Also Ian's, though he's not willing to pay money to see them play live. Fucker.
I've paid them like 5 times.
Yeah. Me too.
That has
Me
nothing
too. And
to
I
do
keep
with
doing it
that has nothing to
because
do
it
with
keeps
favoritism.
becoming a better show every time.
Sure, maybe. I don't think so.
I don't ever see it as
I
a waste
wouldn't
of
say
money,
it's been.
personally.
I would not say I would still say that the Fragile tour was still better than any of the shows I've seen. And I saw him with Bowie, so like I don't know.
I saw him with Bowie too, and I
still
thought
think the
Lights in
Fragile's
Sky
better.
was better.
Nah.
Yeah. Well, like all the other art we discuss on this show, it's subjective, and we're not always going to agree, but that's okay. That's part of the fun.
Did you see it at the Gorge, or was that a?
No, I didn't get to see that one.
Oh, so that's what. Maybe that was magical.
That was just that was a Sasquatch set, though, right?
No, it's just no. It was.
Or was that the Fragile tour?
That was the Fragile tour. Perfect Circle.
Yeah,
opened
no, that was
at the Gorge.
That was before I moved out here.
Oh yeah, it was magical. Anyway,
I believe it. That would be a hard one to top. I get you. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to see a better Radiohead show than I did at the Gorge.
I saw that show.
Yeah,
and I would agree because I saw him at Moda, and it was fine. But Gorge is kind of magical for certain things. So yeah,
kinda.
Anyway,
kinda. So for those, I'm going to weigh in on this debate before we go home tonight. For those of you who have been to the Gorge, and for those of you who have been to Red Rocks in Denver, there's a lot of argument that Red Rocks is the best natural amphitheater in the world. Sorry, Colorado fan, the Gorge is better.
That's good to know. I was going to ask you that actually, because I've never seen a show in Red Rocks, but I've always heard great things.
But I didn't until I was in my 40s, and it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I saw some amazing moon sets, or just moons in the sky at Red Rocks, and it's great sound too. And you get to sit on a bench, I guess, which is better than sitting on the lawn sometimes.
I don't know.
But
lawn is
but
cool
no,
too.
no, the Gorge is better. The Gorge has a better backdrop. It's just the Gorge gives you a better feeling of being out in nature. Like, from your seat at Red Rocks, you can see Denver. Like, you can see the city and the skyline, which is cool in its own. But the Gorge is like so far out
Vast
from
and
where
emptiness.
anything is. Yeah, it's you genuinely feel isolated in nature.
It's like
there.
we were talking about the road and the emptiness, and so seeing a show in kind of that similar, out in the middle of nowhere kind of.
Are they
vibe.
making? They're not making a stop at the Gorge on this tour, are they?
I don't know.
Have they released this year's Gorge concert series?
I don't know. I don't follow that, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, it would be hard to find a show that motivated me to go back to the Gorge. I mean, I fucking loved it there, but 6-hour drive, overnight stay, that's a young person's game anymore.
Indeed.
But who knows? We'll see. It's also a game for a person with a car, which I am not.
There you go.
All right, I've padded out this episode long enough.
Thanks
again
adjacent.
for joining us.
It was
It's somewhat adjacent.
Nine Inch Nails in the Gorge. They were on the show.
They're on the show. It works. It works. If you like our banter. So yeah, for me, this is my highlight of the series.
So it's just downhill from here?
I wouldn't say downhill, but I don't feel like it ever gets better than this for me.
So there's no like.
I mean,
there's no like. Okay. Oh, great.
That's okay. Maybe I'm misspeaking here but like this is one of those episodes where it's just like, yeah, I've never seen anything like this. Can't describe this. Can't. And it's one of those things that just burned itself into my brain. And like when you get older, it's hard to find art that does that for you. Where it just like like hooks itself into your subconscious, and you find yourself randomly thinking about it, just like, what the fuck does this mean? Just at random points in the day, doing random shit. Like, yeah, it's just something that always stuck with me from all this imagery, and just, yeah, it's a piece of art that I've always greatly admired the effect that it had on me. So,
Okay.
and I
Cool.
wouldn't say, I shouldn't necessarily say it's all downhill or this is the best one, but this one affected me in ways that no other episode did. Is that a little
I mean, sure.
less?
Sure.
That's I think that's more accurate. This is not the highest rated IMDb on IMDb of The Return. I think that was part 16.
Okay. Interesting.
So as far as the Twin Peaks nerds who post their ratings are on IMDb are concerned, the best is yet to come.
Okay.
So we'll save that for another week. In the meantime, I've been Gabe. That's been Ian. We love you guys.
Love
Thanks
ya.
so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, let a smile be your umbrella.
Indeed.
Love you, Ian.